So welcome everyone. My name is Joe Cistone and I'm the CEO of IPM. And we're thrilled to have you join us this Friday, September 25th, for our weekly virtual forum in English. Our Spanish language forums that we've been holding at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, excuse me, Eastern Standard Time are going to now be monthly, and we'll be announcing the new schedule for that next week, but we will not have a Spanish language forum today. Today, we are thrilled to be joined once again by IPM's Regional Director for South Asia, and he also lists himself as a consultant for education and outreach in South Asia, as you can see. Mahesh has been with IPM for over a decade. He started back in the early 2000s got involved with IPM through a mutual friend at Case Western Reserve and the Cleveland Foundation, Shilpa Kedar, and then spent some time with me in the post-tsunami activity that IPM was engaged with, particularly with the late, great Dr. Vimala Charles on the coast of Nagercoil, near Nagercoil in Tamil Nadu, and then gradually transitioned from a board position to a staff position. So I joke at times that we miss his insight on the board, but he provides great depth and understanding and commitment to our work around the world, particularly as it relates to strengthening the bonds of solidarity between our headquarters staff, our regional offices, and our partners, and accompanying our partners in their struggles for justice, peace, and liberation. He's been incredibly active during this COVID-19 pandemic in coordinating our work in South Asia, in both India and Nepal. And as you can see on the slide, if you're joining us on Facebook or on Zoom, working directly with the women from HUM, with Phumadi Thapa and her remarkable work in Bandipur, Nepal. Phumadi in the center is the newest member of IPM's International Board of Directors, and also with Hemant, our fellow, Hemant Chawan, in Golana in India. He's also joined, and we're joined on the call today by the newest member of the IPM staff team, Bindia, who some of you can see, and she can introduce herself as we move on with the presentation. So has been our standard for these Friday virtual forums. This is an open forum. We would ask that you mute your Zoom feed at this time. Mahesh will walk us through this presentation with the support of Ilse Fender in our Cleveland office. And again, we deal with the challenges of technology, so his voice may not exactly always match the PowerPoint presentation, and the Facebook feed tends to be a little bit delayed when we're doing this. But please feel free to type any questions or comments you have into the chat function on both Zoom or Facebook, and we will convey those to Mahesh when he's finished with his presentation. So thank you all again for joining us this Friday, and let's hear from Mahesh as he speaks to humbly partnering and learning along the way. Mahesh? We hope.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity once again to share stories from South Asia and our struggles with COVID, as is all over the world. It's not unique to us, it's a global problem, but we have regional ways of responding to it in very different social, economic, and political systems, even though the United States and India are one of the two largest democracies in the world. I'm sorry. So the last time I spoke to you all, the lockdown was on, and we were all locked up in our homes, and it was a struggle to get out. The number of cases, the fear level was very high, and the number of cases were low. Right now, it's just the opposite. The number of cases have increased drastically. Within a 1 kilometer range of where I live, and including my neighbors, there are at least 200 COVID cases at any given point of time. So that's how close it has come to us personally. As far as the urban centers are concerned, they are affected even more than the rural centers. Ahmedabad being one of the hotspots, because this was the place from where international travelers came in and left, both into the country and out of the country. But that's a whole long story, I think, which we are all familiar with, and we are well aware of what's happening at the political level. I just found an old, I don't know where it's, I just found a old, this thing, I don't know if you can see it. It says, don't knock the capital, knock on it. And I think that's true for both of us. So starting with a brief this thing of what we have been doing ever since. First of all, I think we have been facilitating material resources from local organizations for food relief and health and sanitation requirements. These three areas were very critical to what was going on the ground based on the feedback that our partners were giving us. The second thing that most of the partners and all of us were involved with was in ensuring equal access to relief and resources provided by both the government and the non-profit agencies operating in our region. Again, I think all our grassroots groups, whether it's Parveen from Hum, Himat Bindya and his team from Gulana and in Nepal, we have had an extensive member-based relationship with many organizations and with many villages and communities. And our long-standing work with them proved to be a big boon in our ability to deliver some of the resources that were required at the right place and at the right time. That's something that Joe and I even experienced during the post-tsunami effort, where we spent the first month in listening to people, understanding what the needs are and what their problems were, and then arriving at a very customized delivery based on specific, context-specific requirements, personalized requirements of individuals and families. So ensuring equal access was the other major thing that we focused on. Given the large disparities that exist in terms of caste and religious minorities, it was even more important to ensure that both the poor, the minorities, and the Dalits, and all oppressed groups have access to what was being given to them and not deprived of it. The other major thing that we were all involved with was also monitoring non-COVID-19 health issues, trying to ensure that children and women, especially in rural areas, have access to health facilities apart from COVID. Vaccination of children, deliveries. Many of the members of HUM and of Pochabhai Foundation, they work as ASHA workers, as health workers, and as DIEs, and they help deliver children. They help deliver children in the hospitals, at home, and other places. And also ensuring that other diseases which are widely prevalent during the summer months and during the rainy season here in India is taken care of. The third thing was moving away from, not away, but moving beyond crisis relief to get back to long-term organizing, which is our core area of work. So to ensure that projects that had taken a backseat, that they continued in the new COVID environment and as per the new guidelines. The next slide, please. Yeah. So the latest figures, as you can see on this screen, which is provided by the World Health Organization, it shows more than 58 lakh confirmed cases in India. That's 5.8 million, I guess. And I think we are just behind the United States. But this hide a story, and I want to share that story with you. The next slide, please. This is 9,000 people have been quarantined, more than 18,000 have been isolated, more than 51,000 have recovered. The number of deaths are 458, and yeah, total swabs tested were 968. The next slide, please. Yeah, so recently there's a study that came out from the ICMR, which is the Indian Council of Medical Research. The study estimated that 6.47 million Indians were infected by the coronavirus way back in May, in the middle of May. And that compares with the official tally of 85,000 as on 15th May, indicating that millions of sick people were left undiagnosed and may have unknowingly spread the virus. So the number of testing that is done here in India is very low, unlike in many other places. So when the testing is low, the number of cases that are discovered are low, and you tend to have a lot of asymptomatic patients transferring the COVID virus around you. And the study also went on to say that as per their estimate, if you calculate it at the rate of 80 persons who were not diagnosed, maybe up to 15 to 20% of the Indian population, 15%. And at the upper level, if you calculate at 130 infections that went undiagnosed, then more than 28% of the Indian population has been affected by the COVID virus, which is more than 200 million persons in this country. The next slide, please. Okay, so there's the other thing which goes on in all the political discussions that are going on in our neighborhood, in our country. I mean, it's easy to blame the government here in India for not doing what they are supposed to do and policing instead of doing educational work. But I think we are all equally responsible for the spread of the disease. And I think it's time that more and more citizens start taking responsibility for that by following very simple COVID protocols. It doesn't take too much to wear a mask, nor is it too difficult to use disinfectants to sanitize your hands and to follow the guidelines that have been prescribed by both our governments and by the World Health Organization. So in the initial stages, if you see the months of April, May, and June, everything was targeted at the poor in India. The poorest neighborhoods, there was a strong lockdown there. They were targeted. There were checkups going on there. The most famous case of that being of Dharavi in Bombay, which is one of the largest slums, which many of the immersion program participants have visited. And in fact, they have had a better success rate in containing the disease there, COVID-19 over there. Whereas it's the better sections of the societies, it's the better off sections of the societies of the city that is now largely responsible for the large number of COVID cases. So from vegetable vendors, from the poor, the focus and attention has now shifted more and more to the middle class and the elite parts of the cities. And invariably, all you need to do is go out in the streets to see that most of them are not following the rules. Very few are following the rules. And it's very hard to convince them to do it. And this is the moment when I think that I was sharing yesterday in the meeting is one of the biggest challenge for us social activists. It's very easy to go out and work with communities out there. But how do you deal with an issue which is in your neighborhood? For many of us, for many of us in this sector, it's a first-time experience of trying to convince your neighbors to follow practices which we are normally teaching others to follow. So that's a very big challenge, and you're realizing how difficult the task is. As the lockdown conditions started slackening and the economy started opening up, the spread is increasing in different parts of the city. It's becoming harder and harder to contain it. Food joints are open, public transportation has started. So it's becoming even more critical that we follow the rules. And when I say we, I mean each and every citizen of this country. The next slide, please. But enough of all of that negativity which is there all around us. There are a lot of positive stories that are emerging, especially from our partners. And they're setting an example for the rest of the city, for the rest of the country. And I think it's very important that we celebrate this, that we acknowledge this, and that IPM, its friends and others give a big hand to all the efforts that are going on. So just today we started what is known as the Mask Ahmedabad campaign, and it's called Make Local and Buy Local. This is an initiative by HAM, which is being supported by IPM. It was during our conversations with Parveen and our team that we realized that we need to follow some of the protocols by helping others, making masks, distributing masks, and also teaching them. So we have to be the role models for the rest of the society. And so that is something that we started off with. So the HUM group has a sewing class, which often provided training to young women before the COVID situation. And now they have restarted it, they have reopened it, again with some assistance. And we are able to start coaching classes where young women learn not only to cut, to sew and to tailor, not only masks and other dresses, but also learn about COVID-19, about good health practices. So now when they go out and sell this mask, when they go back to their homes, they're not only carrying a piece, not only are they carrying a product that they're advertising for, but they're selling it as an essential for health protection of both of the self and the other. So IPM, we placed an order of 150 masks, which were completed today. Another 100 masks were sold out in the market to others. And I'll be sharing a few more photographs, which will give you a better idea of what I'm speaking. The next slide, please. So there you see the Hum teacher-student training team. It's a wonderful picture. You see all of them in mass, and you see all of the young and enthusiastic women who attend these classes. On the far left, in the black dress, is Husna Arara. She's their teacher. She teaches them each and every aspect of stitching, from cutting to sewing to using the machine, and how to go about doing it. Here, all of them are wearing a mask which has been made and designed by them. On the extreme right is Parveen. She has been a health worker. She's also been a psychosocial lay activist in post 2002 and 2004. She has been trained by the National Institute of Neural and Mental Health Sciences. So she's using those skills again. She's got an opportunity to deal with those who are affected by COVID. She's also handling the procurement of the raw material, the logistics, and the marketing on behalf of Hum. The next slide, please. So this is a beautiful mask that you see right in front of you. They wanted to make it appealing. They wanted it to carry a message. So this is where you see green, a flower and a plant designed on it. They've taken such a print. And it's one of the finest samples that I've come across in the last few weeks. And the next slide, please. See, on the left, you see a bundle of masks which is ready to be shared and distributed. On the right, you see a young person who has made a dress, and what they do is they try to use all the surplus cloth that is left after you cut the dress to make a mask. So she's using a mask made from the same cloth. So you see the dress made of the same cloth, and you see a mask made by the excess cloth which is left behind. The next slide, please. Again, these are some of the trainings that are going on right now in Hum. So women are learning not only to make masks, they're learning to make, you see a gray kurti on the left, you see a frock in the middle, and what is known as a palazzo, if I am not mistaken. That is what has been stitched. And on the right-hand side, you see frocks made for young babies. Because now, since the markets have opened up, there's a growing demand again for some dress materials. People are out there to buy stuff. And the women of Hum are preparing these dresses and then giving it to, of course, somebody who's a subcontractor who then goes and sells it in the shops of the city. The next slide, please. This slide now, I'm coming to the work that is going on in Nepal, in Bandipur. All of you, many of you know Soni, and we know Fulmati Thapa, who is currently a board member. And she shared the latest information on her work, and she states that she's working on the awareness program with the Hotel Association in Bandipur and the Bandipur Tourist Development Committee. And because COVID-19 is over, or still not in Bandipur, she says, so they had a meeting with all the stakeholders like the police, the municipality, and the industrial committee. They are seeking ways of promoting tourism and development again. And they're also looking at agro-village development. Nepal, as you know, depends very much on the tourist trade and the tourists who come into the country and provide them with opportunities of earning money, and both in terms of organizing nature tours and tours into the interiors of Nepal, but also in buying many of the products that they make. So the biggest challenge for Nepal right now is foreign exchange, because foreign exchange is something that both the workers from Nepal who work all over the world in other countries as migrant workers send in, and the foreign exchange that the tourists bring into the country. So that's a particular challenge for them. The guest house, she says, there's no work in the guest house. It's a beautiful guest house. Some of us have stayed there. I remember the students from John Carroll University, and after the earthquake in Nepal, we had carried many solar lamps for the communities there, and we had both the privilege of staying in this small hotel in Bandipur along with Fulmati and her family. And we had some very interesting conversations there, interesting trips that we made to all the neighborhood villages. So that place is quiet and desolate, and they haven't seen a tourist for a very long time. And she says the hotel are full of silences, but their work continues. They're collecting money as best as they can from their family, from friends, from their associates, and IPM also has, IPM donors have also made a generous contribution. and they've been able to buy rice bags. When she says rice bag, it means a bag which contains rice. And they've been able to distribute it in many new villages also to a lot of homeless persons. The next slide, please. Here you see two of the photographs, and you see Fulmati in the yellow dress on the left. She's monitoring the rice packets that are being distributed. On the right, again, you see a rice packet being handed over. Now, that sack of rice that you see there is most probably going to last a family of 4 for almost 2 to 3 months, because they're just going to eat a handful of it. Dal bhat is a well-known combination in Nepal. It's basically boiled rice and dal, which is a lentil soup. But the lentil soup is mostly water. It has a few pulses in it, and it's made a little bit spicy. Especially the poor eat it like that, and that is their staple diet throughout the year. So Fulmati and her team here are seen delivering that. Again, here Fulmati regularly goes and meets many of the communities in her area. Some of you might remember that a few years ago, she stood for elections as a candidate there in the democratic elections that took place in Nepal. And of course, she fought to win. But more than that, she also used that as an opportunity to get to know the problems of her community in the hill areas. So she's very familiar with all of them. She knows each and every one of them there. Most of the families know her. And here she is seen sitting and having conversations with them, trying to figure out how many households there are. They distributed rice bags there. There are around 40 households in this particular belt. Again, they have no work. Many of us have seen them weaving beautiful baskets out of bamboo strips. So this is a photograph that she shared this morning with us. The next slide, please. Again, these are more photographs of the same. On the left, you see the rice bags, and on the right, also the rice bags, and they're being handed over to various families based on a list that has been prepared and approved by the local committee to ensure that everyone who needs it gets it. The next slide, please. Now we are back to Pochabai Foundation. Pochabai Foundation, as you know, is based in Gujarat. It's in a rural area. Many of you have visited Pochabai Foundation and seen its activities in the past. One of the problems that we are facing in India is that COVID-19 has been largely seen as an urban issue and not as a rural issue, except for the occasion when a lot of migrant workers went from cities to back home to their villages. The mass migrations that took place on foot, on train, on bus, in every which way it was possible when people fled the cities to go back home because there was unemployment in the cities. So that was the only occasion when people heard about how bad it was in the cities. But as the norms have been relaxed, as more and more people are traveling out to work, as more and more people from the city visit the villages and from the villages go to the city, it has become more and more important for us to understand the seriousness of the health issues related to COVID. And again, Himmat and his team here have taken the initiative of using the thermometers, which are infra thermometers. They are non-contact thermometers. Again, these were provided by us so that they set up an example of how to conduct oneself in public spaces. So everybody who enters the office, whether it's on a daily routine basis or whether there's a training program, they are first, their temperature is checked. It's made compulsory that they all wear masks, and it is compulsory that they all wash their hands and feet, or either with soap or with disinfectants. So you can see here Bhanubai, who is doing the test on the extreme left. Bhanubai is a core member of Pochabai Foundation. He has been working with them for many years. He's also responsible for much of the food relief that was supplied both within Golana and its surrounding villages and into distant villages. On the right hand side, you see Himmat also carrying out a temperature test. And the person facing Himmat is Francis. Now again, Francis is a big friend of Pochabai Foundation and of IPM. He's always been a great supporter. He's a horticulturist. He has worked with the National Dairy Development Board, and he has always been accompanying Himmat on all the trips that he has been making for the past 2 or 3 months. In fact, in a lighter vein, both Himmat and Francis's spouse say that Himmat and Francis see more of each other than they do, because of the amount of time they've been spending the last 3 months providing relief to and succor to many people who are affected by it. The reason that I have also been stressing on both within our community and our leadership and office teams is that we also owe it to our families to take care, to protect ourselves and follow protocol. It took us a while to do that because in the open, in rural areas, it feels very safe, very comfortable. You think you don't live in a crowded city, so the germs won't come and affect you, the viruses won't affect you. But now slowly it has started spreading to the rural areas. The urban areas, our partners are more alert because they've gone through a critical phase. They're more aware of how difficult it is, what are the problems that are associated with it. With more and more that's taking place in our neighborhoods, it has become more and more critical that rural areas also follow the same. So 2 weeks ago, when we had a meeting there in Golana, when I had a visit there, this is what we discussed, and this is what we said, that we must do it. Because if you shy away from doing it, if you think it's not brave to wear on a mask, you're doing a great disservice to all the people who you are working with, one is working with, our families. So ever since, we have been trying to see and ensure that we follow the protocol. The next slide, please. I will ask Bindya, are you there? We'll ask you to come in here after a couple of lines. So here you see Bindya, who has recently joined us. Bindya, can you briefly introduce yourself to us? And can you share the next few slides and what you're doing?
Yes, I can. Hi, this is Bindya. I'm from Gulana. I have been working with Upadhyaya Foundation, and for last few weeks, I'm also working with IPM now as a junior fellow. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to work with you all. So I'm going to introduce you with this few work which we are doing for last few weeks. So in this picture, you can see that we have conducting a meeting for farmer producers organization, which will contain only women in the whole group. So basically, the idea is to make them independent financially as well, and at the same time, they can sell what they are growing in their farms. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Yes. So this is one more program that we are doing with the children. Currently, we have during the lockdown, the classes have been closed and we could not work on education. So we are teaching the children to grow the kitchen garden in their just in front of the classes. So here it's me and few of my class children who are planting the seeds and preparing the soil for the kitchen garden. In the next picture, you can see that we are planting some trees like there is neem tree and few more trees, medicinal plants also, and vegetables too. Mesh, I think you can take over the next slide. I don't think I'll
Okay,
be
I'll
able
do
to.
that. Okay, thank you. So before I take this slide, I mean, the kitchen garden concept also emerged because the children are not able to go to school anymore. Many of the Upadhyaya Foundation also runs school centers in almost 21 villages. They have more than 700 children who attend this classes on a regular basis. This is more like a tuition class that happens for children who come back home after school hours and try to improve their learning skills. It's also a place where they get to meet people like Vindhya. Vindhya also coordinates I think amongst the others, the teachers training program. She herself is a teacher and she also facilitates teaching of other children in that area. That program is also supported. So in the next photograph, the next slide that you are able to see right now, recently we had the Teachers' Day in India. So here you see many of the girls who are dressed up in saris. That's how the teachers appear to them on a regular basis. So in spite of the fact that schools are closed down, in spite of the fact that there are no remedial classes going on, they decided to celebrate Teachers' Day because they're missing them. They're looking forward to the time when they can get back to their schools and start studying again. On the right-hand side, you see Vindhya again at her center. They are celebrating, I think, a birthday, and she's distributing some munchies to the children. As you will see, most of the children in this photograph, most of the teachers, most of the adults, most of the women wear masks and follow COVID protocol. It's only these middle-aged men who think that nothing is going to happen to them, and they attend meetings and events where you see that they are least bothered about what happens to them or to the others. Unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that they're doing it. But here you see these lovely children beautifully wearing masks and regularly meeting. I had the pleasure of meeting some of them recently, and they're a joyous lot. They are not as sober and serious as they look in the photographs. For some reason in India, whenever a photograph appears, then everybody stands still. But Vindhya has recently shared a lot of fun videos with us where you see them singing and dancing. And I told Vindhya and Himu we need to share more of that, not still photographs where everybody looks very serious, I said. So I think, yeah, and is there the next slide, please, or is it the last slide? I'm not sure. The next slide, please.
That's the last one.
That's the last one. So now just to go back to two other members who have not been portrayed here in this events, and one is Shahadat, who works in the city of Jaipur. Jaipur is a very well-known tourist center, and it's in the state of Rajasthan. Many people who come to India and go to Agra also make it a point to visit the palaces in Jaipur. So Jaipur is also a place where there are more than 26 slum centers that is known as a Kacha Basti. A Kacha Basti, the word Kacha means raw. So it's a raw housing, there is temporary housing, they're mostly sheds. So there are more than 26 to 27 such housing centers. Unfortunately, because of internet connection, Shahadat was not able to share the recent photographs. So Shahadat has been working there. Shahadat is again a young activist that I spoke about last time. He's also a junior fellow who has started working with us. So he left home to spend 3 months in the slum, which was a very risky thing to do. But he had more than 400 children to attend to in some 7-8 slums. So that's where he went and spent all his time. Luckily, he's COVID-free, he's healthy, he's doing well. Recently, he has started 2 new centers with children there. There are more than, I think, if I recollect right, there are more than 40 children attending the 2 new centers. So that's the other thing that I wanted to share. And I'm sure we'll be sharing more later on when Elisa and the others talk about the COVID interviews. Vindhya and I have been doing many COVID interviews together. I think we have completed around 7 such interviews. And mostly with the urban and rural leadership initially. And now we are doing it with the members, and we have some interesting information that is coming up from that. But that's a research that we'll talk more about later. If there are any specific questions that you would like to ask or you would like me to narrate, please feel free to do so.
Thank you so much, Mahesh. We would like to invite anyone to share a question or concern at this point. Anything you'd like to add, please feel free to join in. And again, if you're on Facebook, or if you would like to just type into the chat function on Zoom, please feel welcome to do so. And we'll continue our conversation with Mahesh and Vindhya about this wonderful work that's happening in South Asia through IPM and our partners there at this time. I see that Peter has joined us, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Peter, but I'm kind of been chuckling to myself about 4 years ago. This November, we were in India the morning after the surprising election. And I'm having a feeling I might have to move to India this November. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I think as I am speaking to you today, I remember when I was preparing this morning and I was sharing with the others, I was really looking forward to sharing the presentation today. But I realize as I'm sharing with you, there's a sense of exhaustion dealing with all these issues for the last few months. And I think it's infectious. I think many of us are pretty exhausted doing this work. And not that we don't want to do more about it, but there is a kind of a lull in the case of the urgent, hectic work that we are doing in terms of delivering food, supplies, worried about people who can't reach you and worried about people whom we couldn't reach. So that kind of phase is sort of got over. We are able to meet each other more frequently, more regularly. So that has meant both an absence of kind of tension that we were experiencing earlier, but it also brings us back to the harsher realities of life. And see, during a crisis, everybody comes together. The society comes together, friends, family. And I remember in the previous presentation that I made, I had shared a chart of the finances that came to us, to support all the activities that were going on. And I recollect in that presentation, unfortunately, I didn't add it on this one, that IPM had contributed around maybe 7 to 8% of the total funding that came in to support our activities, whereas the major chunk of funding came from family, friends, other organizations. But the reality is also that today it's just the reverse, that the major funding for our work now is IPM and not those other groups who come in for the short term, who have a change of heart when they see something that goes on. But when it comes to sustaining long-term work, when it comes to sustaining leadership over a period of time, it really becomes bleak sometimes. The laws in our country are such now, the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, there are new changes in that. Rules have become more and more stricter. And I really appreciate a lot of young people who are still daring to come and join this sector, like Vindhya, like Shahadat, and many of the others. My worry is also about the future in that sense, that how do we manage and sustain this young leadership? Because I think currently, and I've said this repeatedly, the crisis that we face, the bigger crisis that we face in society is a crisis of young leadership. So unless we sort of seek them out, unless we identify them, unless we nurture them, the same ways that our founders did with us, the way they discovered Joe and the way Joe discovered me. But we are all beyond our 50s now, so late 50s. So I think one of the major tasks that IPM has in the coming years in everywhere that we do, it's not only about a succession plan within the organization, but it's also helping some of the partner organizations find out, identify young leadership, train them, mentor them, nurture them. So these are some of the issues that have been sort of going on in the back of my mind the last few days and the last few weeks. And I often, and I'm sure there's a way out, and I'm sure there are good things are going to happen. But that is a slightly heavy burden that I'm carrying right now, because just the other day it was my birthday, and Himu wrote a beautiful piece in Gujarati saying that unlike most people who like to create their own non-profit and set up their own non-profit, Mahesh has gone and joined IPM and joined other groups who are working rather than build his own organization. And that I played a major role in identifying young leadership, nurturing them over a period of time, supporting them in whatever way I can, till they themselves are able to both build sustainable social change organization, and not only build them, but also to maintain them to ensure that continuity in that sense. So I think Hemant captured what all of us are doing, what we are doing, what IPM is doing, what Joy and I are doing, and of course I say Joy and I are doing in the sense that we are representative for a larger group of people who believe in the same thing of nurturing, mentoring young leadership, building sustainable change organizations. So that was a concern that was also in my mind. So I was just looking at the flip side of the funding also, the crisis brings out a lot of funding sometimes, but the minute the crisis ends, people are back into their homes, they forget us. I don't mean us like necessarily our close family members, don't expect them to support us 24/7, but groups who have supported us over the years, we always ask them between one crisis and the next, what do we do? Are you going to stay with us? So we hope that many of us who have joined us in this journey the last few months, that they stay with us. We find ways of being engaged with them. We find ways of connecting with them and relating to them. We can't wait for I mean, we had the 2002 communal riots in Gujarat, and then a lot of things happened. And then again, there was a downswing. Then the 2004 tsunami happened. Again, you had a lot of groups and support coming in. 2001, we had the earthquake. Again, you had a lot of support coming in. Nepal had a very severe earthquake a few months ago, and again, you sort of had, what do you call, relief and aid and all that pouring in, And then we have always hoped, that the immersion programs, which are missing a lot, the immersion program was a connection to the world, We met so many people who met us, who carried our voices, and we are very grateful to all those participants who came and visited us, whether here in India, Nepal, Africa, or Latin America, who have continued to support us. I'm also grateful to many of the staff members of IPM who worked in the past and moved on, and thank grateful to them also for support and for remembering us. And I think as long as we are remembered by a few of the people who have been interacted with from different parts of the world, I think there is hope then. I mean, I'm both stating a question and answering it in some ways, but that is on top of my mind, and I feel like I'm in the right audience to share these concepts of mine. Maybe I'm being overwhelmed, maybe I should not be, but at this point of time, I'm thinking of what next, what next, what next. I'm going to stop here. If there are any questions, I'd like to ask.
I would just say, Mahesh, that I appreciate you sharing that. I know that comes from the heart, and you and I have had a number of discussions increasingly over the years as our daughters have aged. My oldest daughter, your only daughter, and but also as all the new younger people have joined the IPM family and the IPM staff, and that's been one of the real highlights of this time of pandemia. I know for Ilsa and Doug in the Cleveland office as well, who are older than you and I a little bit, but to be able to, just see and be a part of the energy that, whether it's Adela or Aneda and Vicky, or now Bindia with Hemed and Sony and Jared, all the other young people, Alyssa, who become such vital leaders of this organization. And Carol had typed a comment in earlier about Jim Mayer and Joanne Peterson, and the idea that you teach 10 people, they teach 10 people, they teach 10 people, and those ripple effects that we often talk about. And it's just really exciting to see Bindia's face, to know the good work that Hemed is doing, and Sony and Fumati and everyone in the Latin American office that we've heard so much from over these past 6 months, and the possibilities of their presence in the organization, what that means for all of us, and the future of this small but mighty little movement that Carol told me I was never allowed to retire from. So it's good to at least see the next generation, because at some point you and I and others aren't, Ilsa, we're not going to be able to do this anymore. It does say, let's see, there's a couple of content, Carol has a similar chat here. I don't know if you can see it, Mahesh, but she says, we are blessed with IPM and those staff wherever they are. They continue to amaze me and encourage me. I believe the enthusiasm and dedication, when shared with younger folk, will give impetus to the future of this great group. I couldn't agree more. And Margie is saying, so glad to see the important shifts we have made in outreach and services as the times have necessitated. And I do think, it's hard to talk about a pandemic and 30 some million people infected around the world and over 1 million people dead, that it's been a time of blessing. It seems like, not the appropriate word, but I do think it's been important for IPM to have this experience of what it means when people like myself, board members and others, aren't able to travel, even the regional staff, that we're not able to be together, but that we're able to continue to work together and accompany one another, even at these really, really unprecedented and difficult times. Bindia, would you like to add anything? I don't want to put you on the spot, but Mahesh talked about what a joy it's been to have you join the staff in India, and it would be really nice, I think, for folks to hear a little bit of your reflection on what your time with IPM has been like.
Hi, Joe. We have been sharing a lot during last 2 days. I don't think there is any left now. We have included most of the things.
Mahesh is saying, I don't know if you can see, that he can't see most of the chats for some reason. There are a number of people on Facebook Live. Dora Suba, Tavarine, who, as most of you know her, and Sony have both joined and said hello. Greeted everyone. Any other questions? Any comments from anyone? Some of you have traveled to India with us. Some of you were hoping to travel to India, and that's had to be delayed. I will say that while we had planned the board meeting to be in conjunction with the South Asia Regional Conference later this year, we've obviously had to postpone that. So Ilsa, Mahesh, Vindhya, and I and others are working on some special content for the board, the International Executive Board, that we'll be able to share during the meeting. And obviously an open immersion opportunity to India would be something we could also discuss. I know many of you are interested in that, and Mahesh and Vicky right now are working on what the itinerary would look like for such a virtual immersion, building on, frankly, on the course that I taught at Yale Divinity School a couple years ago, that Mahesh co-led for the delegation, and Ann Jacob, whose family is originally from Kerala, was my teacher's assistant for that, and really opened some wonderful doors for us in that part of India.
Joe, add something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so there is nothing about the work. Especially, I want to share one experience with you all. You remember when I was with you on the first Zoom meeting? I was a bit nervous, and you told me to introduce myself, and I was so, like, you know, it was like I was not able to speak anything and all that. I was expecting that typical formal kind of behavior from you all. Obviously, as I have been working with the groups, they are like that, that if they are seniors in the work and experience, then we have to behave like that. And what I have learned from you, Mahesh, and all other from the staff members, they are very familiar and friendly. I don't find myself too young and, unexperienced to work. So I'm happy with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bindi. I know that I can see the smile on Ilsa's face. You've been a wonderful addition to the team in South Asia and India. We're really grateful that you're there, and I know that Ella, even though I can't see her, I know that you really enjoyed getting to know you.
The credit goes to my who has made me so comfortable to be with you all.
I just
Yeah,
wanted,
we are a safe space. So.
I was just going to add, since Joe kindly pointed out that I'm one of the more senior staff, how absolutely excited and grateful and inspired I am to know that IPM is in such good hands with the next generation of younger colleagues that I have. You know, Bindia, with your joining the IPM family with our Latin America team, you know, through our fellows program, we've continued to inspire that next generation and model, you know, community change and empowerment. And, you know, with our immersion program, primarily with most of the participants being, you know, university and high school students, where we have that opportunity to really impact their worldview. And now with the virtual immersion experience program, there's tremendously more opportunity to expand those opportunities of awareness. So I am very grateful that IPM is in the position we're in right now with the dedication of the staff. And, you know, as always, underscored by the dedication of our board and our donors and our supporters. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Ilsa. I know we're just about at time, and I've been sort of sharing these centering prayers or meditations during um, meetings with staff and colleagues the last couple of weeks because after having a tech-free holiday, I want to sort of hold on to that ability to not be so busy and not be so rushed. Um, there is a question, Mahesh, from Marie Manning that just came through, but in the interest of time, I think maybe you could just respond to her directly via Facebook. It's in the Facebook chat, and it's pretty political, so it might be better for you to respond directly to her.
Certainly.
So let's just end, if you all feel comfortable, just to close your eyes and center yourselves for a moment. And this is called a blessing for the future. Bless, O divine, the unanswerable, the hypothetical, the possible. Bless the silence, the shrug, the hard to say, the who knows, the have to wait and see. Bless the markers, the absence of markers, the path, the no path, the indistinct, the clearing. Bless the arriving life, the nothing normal about it, new normal, the unscouted, the future, the unknown. Bless you in it, the presence, the firm, the knowing, the power, the same love. Bless you in it, the center, the serene, the hidden near, the gleaming, the boundless mercy, the same love here and there, the same love now and when. Thank you all for taking the time to join with us today, and may the peace that passes all understanding be with you this weekend and throughout the coming week. We hope to see you next Friday. Take care.
Thank you all. Thank you.